Hey yo, what's going on guys? It's your boy Scatino, aka Scat, and welcome to my brand new YouTube series. This series is basically going to consist of me replaying some of my favourite games of this past generation. Not playing through them completely, just maybe showing, between half an hour to an hour of the gameplay. I kind of come up for the idea for this series just because obviously the PlayStation 4 has now been announced. The next Xbox is obviously going to be announced within the next couple of months as well, leading up to E3. So I'm just feeling that, just because we're coming to the end of this console generation, it would be good to look back on some of my favourite games that were actually available on the Xbox 360 and the PS3. So the idea is basically, like I say, just maybe 30 minutes to an hour of gameplay, just to see how we get on, and just see how these games play now. Have they aged well over the course of this generation? Are they still as fun as I remember? A lot of these games, I really haven't played since they actually first come out. Obviously because I've moved on to other games. So yeah, it's revisiting some of my classic games of this generation basically. So in this episode, I'm going to be looking at Motorstorm, the original Motorstorm. For a lot of you may know, this was actually a launch title for the PlayStation 3. It was the first PlayStation 3 game I owned alongside Resistance Fall of Man, because it came as a bundle, so I got both games. And obviously this was my first experience with Motorstorm. It was a brand new IP for Sony and the PlayStation brand, and this is where I just absolutely fell in love with the game. Absolutely fell in love with the game, fell in love with the series. So I'm just going to show you some of it. Obviously I'm not going to be playing online because the servers have actually shut down now. So I'm just going to get into the actual gameplay. So basically what Motorstorm is, it's like a festival. Racers from all around the world gather at certain locations to race it out basically, who's the best racer. And it's like a 2-day weekend, something like that, plays out as a festival, and there's all sorts of vehicles you can actually use. So we're just going to jump into this first race. So it allows you to pick any vehicle in this race. So you have options of bikes, ATVs, buggies, rally cars, racing trucks, mud pluggers, big rigs. I always use the bike in Motorstorm. The bike's my favourite. It's like probably the quickest and most nimble, but yet obviously it's the weakest in terms of if you get rammed to the side, you are going to go and crash and things like that. The first Motorstorm was set in Monument Valley, which is pretty much like the Grand Canyon, I guess. And my very first taste of Motorstorm was, I didn't actually get the PlayStation 3 on launch day. I got it like a couple months after, and I remember one of my friends, he actually had the game. He got his PlayStation 3 day one. He spent like so much money on it, and I remember going over to his house. He had this game, he had Resistance Fall of Man, and he had another game, I can't remember the name of it. But he had like a 50-inch HD TV. He was one of them who always had like the best shit. I didn't even have a HD TV at the time. So I went round to his house to check out this game, and he put on this Motorstorm, and I just remember being absolutely blown away by this game. This was literally like, oh my god, look at the graphics. To me at the time it looked like so photorealistic. It was untrue. I really was taken aback. And I'd already owned a 360 for about a year, but like I say, I didn't even own a HD TV. So the first year of the 360's life, I was playing in standard def basically, but not one game on the 360 floored me the way that Motorstorm did. It really didn't. like I say, just the look of it, you know, the draw distance and these huge canyons that you were racing in, you know, everything. It was jaw-dropping at the time. It really was. And you know, say I already crashed. Just shows you. To be honest, I shouldn't even be in the dirt. I shouldn't be racing in the dirt right now, just because the bikes aren't made to be raced in the dirt. But yeah, that was actually my first experience with Motorstorm and of the PlayStation 3. Just seeing, you know, these HD visuals that just looked absolutely phenomenal. It really was out of this world. So, like I say, I eventually got my PlayStation 3 a couple months later, whenever it was, and Motorstorm I got as part of the bundle. So obviously, you know, I was super hyped to actually get to play it for myself at extended periods of time, instead of, you know, just a half an hour here and there at my friend's house. So, you know, I got to play in the game, and like I said, I just absolutely fell in love with it. And I find, oh shit, what the fuck? I find it a damn shame that the series hasn't really taken off as much as I would have hoped. There's been 3 games in the PlayStation 3 series, and of course Arctic Edge actually come out on the PlayStation 2 and the PSP. I'm going to crash unless I make that. Yeah, I mean, I think the game sold reasonably well, just because obviously it spawned 2 sequels on the PlayStation 3. 4, of course, if you count Arctic. Oh, what the fuck? Crash. Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite obvious that the first Motorstorm game was going to sell well anyway, because obviously it was packaged in as bundles with the PlayStation 3. So, you know, if you bought a PlayStation 3 and Motorstorm was bundled with it, that actually counts as a unit sold of Motorstorm. So, you know, the sales for the first game were pretty good, but you know, the sales have just got progressively worse as the series has continued, which is such a damn shame, because I think it's a great series. The series peaks obviously with the second game, I believe, with Pacific Rift, which is just outstanding and is to this day my favourite racing game of this generation. I really enjoyed Apocalypse, but there was just something about Pacific Rift which was just completely unbelievable, and like I say, to this day it stands as my favourite racing game of this generation. Possibly one of my favourite races of all time, if not my favourite racing game of all time. So yeah, Motorstorm 1, which is of course what we're playing now. I mean, in terms of the graphics, you got to think this game is now what, 6 years old, 6-7 years old. It still looks good, don't get me wrong, but obviously the series has progressed graphically, and of course, you know, with this game actually being based around oh shit, I'm first and I've been fucking up like so bad, even though this is like the first race of the festival and like the easiest. So yeah, the game, obviously the setting was Monument Valley, so it is like all like reddish browns and things like that, because obviously it's set within canyons and shit like that. But you know, even now, let's put it this way, even now, 7 years into this console generation life cycle, there's still games that don't look as good as this, really. And that's some true shit. Motorstorm has just always been a great game, and oh god, I'm fucking up so bad. Can tell I've not played this game for years. But you know, Motorstorm, with it being a first party title, of course the graphics are just going to be immense, just because obviously it's really harnessing the power of what the system can do, that you don't actually get really with third party titles a lot of the time, because obviously, you know, they've got to cater to cross platform specs and everything. But yeah, when I first played Motorstorm, I'm just really playing badly right now. When I first played Motorstorm, you know, it really pushed the boat out in terms of visuals. That's all I remember. And I think one of the things about the Motorstorm series, and one of the things why I don't really think it took off as as well as it should have is because of the accessibility of it. It's not an easy game to get to grips to. There is a learning curve to it. All of the vehicles control differently, all the actual tracks are set out differently with many different paths that you can actually take, different routes, you know. Different vehicles are suited to different routes, so such as the bike that I'm using now, that's suited more to the higher routes, where it's just like on the dirt paths and such, whereas the big rigs are obviously going to handle much better. I come first in that race. The big rigs are obviously more suited to be down in the mud because they can handle that kind of terrain. So there is a learning curve to it, because not only have you got to learn, like I say, how to handle the actual vehicles, but you also need to learn the tracks. And like I say, with the many different routes that you can take on whichever track, you know, there's many different routes that you have to, well, I'll click retry there. Let's quit the race and we'll try another one. Yeah, so there's many different routes that you actually have to master with all the different vehicles. So I believe that's just one of the reasons why it, of course, you know, didn't really take off, in my opinion, which, you know, is a shame, because it really is an excellent series. Now, which is the one? Rain God Mesa was a really good track, if I remember rightly, but it's not the one. It's not my favourite one, I believe. I also remember as well, of course, like, you know, when you're selecting your vehicle, that the loading times for it took quite a bit, which is quite annoying. Trying to think which was my favourite. The Italia Vulcan. I think that was the one. I think the Italia Vulcan was my favourite, of course, for obvious reasons. Rain God Mesa, from what I remember, was a pretty good track. If it's the one I'm thinking about, I know there's at least two tracks that I really enjoyed on this one, and I think there's one where I always use the bike, and it was just a really good track because it had like a load of jumps and everything in it. So yeah, that was a really good track. But we'll check out this one as well. And of course, obviously, with this being a launch title, it doesn't actually contain any trophies. The game never got patched with trophies. Obviously, when, you know, the trophies actually did go live and become mandatory, this was one of the games that didn't actually receive the trophy patch. Neither did Resistance Fallen Man, if I remember quite rightly, which is a shame. But you know, I think this game was already like, what was it, two or 3 years old or something by the time trophies come out. So you know, I think at the time they were already well into development on Pacific Rift. So I think taking all that time out to then go back and code the game for trophies for this, you know, I think it, the strain on resources, I think it would have been. Oh shit! See, I completely forgot about how to do these tracks. Oh yeah, this is one of the tracks that I really enjoy, just because I used to love burning round the cliffside like that, you know, with a boost on. And I've just completely fucked it up. Yeah, I mean, it's like graphically, you know, like I've already said, man. Just look at the draw distance on this game. You know, just look how far this shit reaches, and it's like, wow. Even now, it's like, I'm playing this game now just for the purpose of this video, and I probably won't continue to play it after I've done this video. Like I say, this is just, you know, just a replay sort of thing, just to see how these games hold up. And I must say, I mean, that's the whole reason behind this series of videos I'm doing, just to see how these games actually hold up now, years after they've been released, you know, from this generation. And this game still holds up. Graphically, it looks really good. Control wise, okay, it might not be as tight as what we come to see in Pacific Rift, but you know, it still handles really well. If of course, you know, you know how to play the game. And I understand, you know, it looks like I really suck at the game right now, but to be quite honest, I'm far from suck at this game. I'm not a master on it by any means, but you know, I can hold my own on Motorstorm. On my good friend Brooklyn's site, which is Brooklyn King, I am like the king of Pacific Rift. You know, that was quite hilarious, that whole thing, because the site that I'm a part of, brooklynking.com, shameful plug by the way, you know, Pacific Rift was is probably like our favourite competitive racing game that we used to, you know, get on and play together, and we'd always talk shit to each other about, you know, who's the best and this, that and the other. And when we found out that the servers for Pacific Rift were going to be, you know, shut off, we had a bit of a final tournament, you know, to give it a bit of a send off, which I won. So it's nice that, you know, on this site that I'm a part of with a lot of very good people. Shout out to Mad Dragon and Shooter, of course Chauncey, True Talent. It's nice to know that I am, oh shit, it's nice to know that I am the king of the Rift for Pacific Rift, just because of how dope that game is. But yeah, man, you know, Motorstorm just holds so many good memories for me, and it is a racing game. So I think after this race, I am gonna cut off this video, because I don't think there's too much else I can actually talk about. But other than that, you know, I could just say Motorstorm just holds so many good memories for me. I think it's a fantastic racing game. The series as a whole, sorry, is magnificent. I hope they bring a new one out on the PlayStation Vita. Not that Motorstorm RC, which was a good game in itself, but you know, it's not a true Motorstorm experience. I hope they bring out a true Motorstorm game on the PlayStation Vita, but I also hope that, you know, after they get this Drive Club shit out the way on the PlayStation 4, I hope Evolution Studios do revisit Motorstorm again, and they create a game for the PlayStation 4, because I think that the series does have a lot of loyal fans out there. I really do, and I think the hardcore fans like myself really want another Motorstorm game, and I think it'll be a shame if they, you know, just try and move on to something else, because I don't want this series to die just yet. I think there's still a lot more they can do with it. Even if they made a Pacific Rift 2, you know, I'd be so over the moon by that. You know, I'd be absolutely orgasmic if they actually made a Pacific Rift 2. That's my hopes and dreams for the PlayStation 4. In fact, I actually hope they just port Pacific Rift to the Vita, and I'll be happy with that. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this first video of this series. Like I say, Motorstorm, I'll cut this video short now just because obviously it is a racing game. You kind of get the general idea of what it's about, and like I say, I believe the gameplay still holds up to this day. It's still really fun. I was just having a lot of fun playing with it, you know, getting back to grips with it again. It still looks great. It's unfortunate, obviously the online servers have shut down now, so you can't actually play online. But yeah, like we need to keep the Motorstorm name alive, and you know, keep this series going. You know, get onto Evolution Studios, man, and get them to make that other Pacific Rift. So that's it from me, guys, for the time being. I'm not sure which game I'll do next in the series. I've got quite a few ideas of what kind of games I actually want to, you know, go back and revisit. So, you know, maybe expect some surprises, and maybe expect, you know, some games that are actually well known that you may think, oh shit, you know, I've not actually played that in years, but it was a really good game. So yeah, like I say, I hope you all enjoyed. I'm your boy Scatino, and as always, you know, rate, comment, subscribe, and I'm out of here for now. So yeah, that's it. Peace.